Kalaye Sundarakaram Sadaika Priyadarshanam Ajnana Nashakam Devam Sadgurum Muralidharam Murali Mandita Karakamalam Munijana Mohanam Vyatyastapadam Vanamala Dharinam Prema Bhakta Mandala Nitya Kirtitam Shri Premika Varadam Ashrayeham. So was Srimad Bhagavatam is Bhagavan himself. When someone asks what is very unique about Bhagavatam, the first thing that we should remember is it is not a mere text, but it is Bhagavan. In Maharanyam it says, Teneyam Vangmayi Murtim. What does it mean? Bhagavan has incarnated in many forms. We discussed this. But a very unique form of Bhagavan is Shabda Rupa Brahman. Bhagavan has taken the form of words. Right? He has taken the form of a text, a scripture. And that is what is Bhagavatam. That is the beauty of Bhagavatam. And we also saw how this Bhagavatam was narrated by Suta Pauranika to Shaunakadi Maharishis in Naimisharanya Kshetra, where they were all gathered to do some big yagya, Satra Yaga. It is during the Vishramana Kala, whenever there was a break, Suta Pauranika was narrating this Bhagavatam. Why did he narrate this Bhagavatam? He has been narrating a lot of Puranas during these breaks. But Shaunakadi Maharishis asked very specifically 6 questions about something that's good for the people in Kali Yuga. And as a response to those 6 questions, Suta Pauranika started narrating Srimad Bhagavatam. And he gave the answers for all the questions very shortly. Finally, the greatest goal to be attained, the greatest lakshya to be attained is Krishna Bhakti. That's what we discussed for the past 2-3 sessions that we met, where we saw how Satsanga helps and how we can get that Satsanga even if we visit some holy places without being conscious about the greatness of it. When we do even like that, we are blessed by the deity there, by the presence of the sadhus there. We get Satsanga, and the Satsanga leads to listening to Bhagavan's stories, the Leelas, and that in turn purifies us and readies us and prepares us for that beautiful unconditional devotion to flower in our heart. Right? That's what we saw. And that is what we have to aim to achieve. That absolute, beautiful, unconditional devotion to Bhagavan. Right? Ahaituki bhakti, apratihata bhakti. A devotion that knows no obstacles, a devotion that has no conditions. That is a kind of pure love. As a matter of fact, when we say love, it is called love only if it is unconditional. If there is some condition for us to like somebody, it is not called love. It is called business. Is it not? Because you like someone because you get something out of them. So it is like you're trading something. That is not love. Love is by definition unconditional. It has no conditions. It just has absolutely for no reason. Right? So that is the kind of love we need to have for Bhagavan. And Bhagavatam is going to show us all those great devotees who had such love for Bhagavan. Each of them had the flowering of that kind of bhakti for a different reason. The path that led each of the devotees to Bhagavan might be very different. But finally, they all join at this path of bhakti. The initial journey might be different, but then they all get to this bhakti, and once they have that love, that's the only thing they want, and there's nothing more. You're going to see a lot of bhaktas like that in Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam focuses on that kind of love. Okay, so Srimad Bhagavatam is one of the 18 Puranas, and we all know it was composed by Sri Veda Vyasa Maharishi. Now, what is the greatness of Veda Vyasa Maharishi? When we talk about Veda Vyasa Maharishi, what do we say? We say Vyasaya Vishnu Rupaya Vyasa Rupaya Vishnave Namo Vai Brahmanidhaye Vasishtaya Namo Namaha. Right? So, when we chant a shloka on Veda Vyasa Maharishi, how do we address him? Vishnu Rupaya. He's not different from Bhagavan Vishnu. He is called Jnana Kalavatara. See, Bhagavan has done a lot of avatars. Right? We discussed the different kinds of avatars Bhagavan does. One of it is Jnana Kalavatara, which means Bhagavan's Jnana, his wisdom, that took an avatar. That aspect of Bhagavan incarnated as Sri Veda Vyasa Maharishi. So he is not different from Bhagavan. He is a Kalavatara. He may not be a Purnavatara. Now, what is the difference between a Purnavatara and a Kalavatara? See, generally, remember, we say amongst all the avatars, we call Ramavatara and Krishnavatara as Purnavatara. And all the other avatars are not Purnavataras. They are Amshavataras or Aveshavataras. For example, Parashurama Avatara is called Avesha Avatara. Because if you know a bit of Ramayana, you would know that Parashurama existed when Sri Ramachandra Prabhu was also there. Though he existed even before Ramachandra Prabhu, he was still alive when Ramachandra Prabhu was there. And we saw that we see in Ramayana that Ramachandra Prabhu curtails the power of Parashurama. He controls the powers of Parashurama. As a matter of fact, he absorbs the powers of Parashurama, and the Lord Parashurama loses his powers, which means he is only a Avesha avatar. Like, he had the Bhagavad Avesha for some time, and after Ramatara came to be, he did not have that Bhagavad Amsha anymore. Similarly, if we say Narasimha Avatara, we don't have a big story. We have a story for Prahlada. Do we have a story for Narasimha? No, is it not? Narasimha's story is very short. It's dependent on Prahlada's story. Like Bhagavan came, he revealed himself in an instant for protecting Prahlada. And after the work was done, Bhagavan left. So it's called again a Amshavatara. He came. When Bhagavan takes forms where he does not exploit he does not expend all his powers, all his Aishwarya, it is called Amshavatara. For example, I'll make it easy for you to understand. Say some businessman is a billionaire. Okay? He's like very rich. But he has to go to or he's sending one of his, some servant or, someone who is helping him to some shop to get him something. Does he have to give his entire bank account? No, is it not? Even if he has to go and purchase something in some shop, when he's going for a shopping with his family, if he has to buy, does he have to give the entire bank account to the shop? No. He just carries a few dollars with him, right? And he expends only so much. Now, just because he expends only, say, $1,000 or $2,000 does not mean he's not a millionaire. He's capable of spending so much. He has so much with him, but he spends only so much at that time, only a part of it, because that is the need, right? Like a father has a lot of money, but if he sends his son out for a grocery shop, he gives him just 100 rupees because that is enough, right? Similarly, Bhagavan has put of powers. He can accomplish so many things, but he does not use all his powers always. In only 2 avatars, he has brought down his entire powers, and that is Rama Avatara and Krishna Avatara. When Bhagavan comes like that, he's got a Purna Avatara, and otherwise, when he uses only a part of his absolute power, he's called only a Amsha Avatara. So, Veda Vyasa Maharishi was also an Amsha Avatara. He was a Jnana Kala Avatara of Bhagavan. He said he is the Amsha of Bhagavan's intelligence, right? His intellect. He has come to show us the path. He has incarnated in the end of Dwapara Yuga for the sake of people of Kali Yuga, to guide them and give them scriptures and give them a proper guidance so that we can benefit out of the scriptures. So that was his Avatara Karya. We have to understand, people like Veda Vyasa Maharishi, they're called Avatara Purushas. Right? It's a nice term to remember, because we'll be using these quite often in satsangs, so you would like to know what it is. Avatara Purusha means they're not like a common soul, an embodied soul like us, not a common jiva. Because they are born with a purpose. That is called Avatara Karya. See, we are all born with a purpose. All of us have some purpose in our life, but we are yet to find the real purpose. Is it not? Like we are still struggling to really figure out what the purpose of our life is. And once we do that, that's it. But Avatara Purushas, they're born with a purpose. So it's like they know exactly what they have to do. And unless they do, what they have come to do, they'll never feel at peace with their own life. So Avatara Purushas have something called Avatara Karya. And if they do not accomplish that Avatara Karya, they do not feel well. They don't feel at peace with themselves. They feel very restless. So Vedavyasa Maharishi was also an Avatara Purusha, which means he also had an agenda. There was a proper purpose behind his manifestation. There was a proper purpose behind his incarnation. Right? So here, our Vedavyasa Maharishi has given this Bhagavatam for us, and our Guru Maharaj would always say, amongst all the incarnations, avatars of Bhagavan, the supreme-most avatara, the greatest of all avatars is Vyasa Avatara. Not Krishna Avatara, not Rama Avatara, not Narsimha Avatara. But what Avatara? Vyasa Avatara. Why? Because it's only because of Vyasa Maharishi that today we have Bhagavatam in our hand. And only because we have Bhagavatam in our hand do we know about all the other incarnations of Bhagavan. Otherwise, we would not even know. Is it not? So, if we did not have Vedavyasa Maharishi, we would not have all the scriptures available today for us. And that is why, whenever we all know something called Guru Poornima, right? It comes around July. So, it's also called Vyasa Poornima. Right? Why? Why is Guru Poornima called Vyasa Poornima? Because it is the day of Vyasa Jayanti. It is Vedavyasa Maharishi's birthday. That is what we celebrate as Guru Poornima. Why? Because some people may follow the philosophy of Advaita. The philosophies we have in our Sanatana Dharma. We have Advaita, we have Dvaita, we have Visishta Dvaita. Someday we'll discuss all this in greater detail. So each of them follow a different philosophy. But whatever philosophy one may follow, everyone claims that their Adi Guru is only Vyasacharya. Because he is the one who has given us the scriptures. He is the one who has given us, he codified the Vedas for us. He gave us Mahabharata. He gave us all the Puranas. So he gave us Brahma Sutra. He gave us everything. And whatever philosophy whoever has today, it's all based on the works of Vyasa Maharishi. So when we celebrate the day for a Guru, we call it as a Guru Poornima. That day we celebrate only Vyasacharya. Right? So our Guru Maharaj would say the greatest of all avatars is Vyasa Avatara. Otherwise we would not know, we would not have all that we have today. Now, when Sutta Pauranika was telling Bhagavatam, when he was telling, that I'm going to tell you Bhagavatam, at that time, Shaunakadi Rishis, they asked a few pertinent questions. They asked, oh Sutta, please tell us, when did all this happen? You're telling that Vyasa wrote Bhagavatam, that his son Shukacharya learnt Bhagavatam from him. And then you say that Parikshit was ruling the kingdom and then he gave up his kingdom. He went to the shores of Ganga Mata and he met Shukacharya there and he heard Bhagavatam from him. All these stories. When did this happen? What inspired Vedavyasa Maharishi to write something as beautiful as Srimad Bhagavatam? We need to know that. Who or what is the inspiration? Please tell us everything about Vyasa Maharishi, how he wrote Bhagavatam, how Shukacharya learnt Bhagavatam from him. Because Shukacharya was such a great jnani. He was such a great jnani. He was absolutely not conscious of his body. He was so immersed in the joy of his self that he was never bothered about this world. That is how he was. How did someone like him, who's such a great self-realized soul, how did someone like him come and sit and learn a scripture that is 18,000 slokas long? Like, you have to really spend so much time for it. How did he do it? Why did he do it? And Parikshit is such a great king. Is it not? Parikshit comes from the lineage of Pandavas. And Pandavas are relatives of Krishna. And Krishna was the one who fought from the side of Pandavas and he was the one who got the kingdom for Pandavas. And after that, the Pandavas passed it on to Parikshit. And that is the case. Parikshit gave up his kingdom. Parikshit gave up his family. Parikshit gave up all the luxuries of his life and he went to the banks of the river Ganga, with a decision to quit his body. Why would someone as young as Parikshit, why would someone who's as successful as Parikshit, why would someone who's the king of kings do something like that? It's baffling. So tell us why that happened. And how did these two people meet? And why did, or how or why did Shukacharya sit and tell this whole story to Parikshit? Please tell us everything. So when they inquired further about the details of the birth of Bhagavatam, right? So that is the first story. We were going to learn the birth of Bhagavatam. How did Vyasacharya write Bhagavatam in the first place? Right? So, Sutta Puranika says, Dvapare samanuprapte tritiye yugaparyaye. Dvapare samanuprapte tritiye yugaparyaye. Jata parasharat yogi vasavya kalaya harehe. Right? Vasavyam kalaya harehe. He says, at the end of Dwapara Yuga and in the beginning of Kali Yuga, Vyasacharya's avatara took place. Why did he take an avatara at the end of Dwapara Yuga? Like I said, we're going to see his avatara was for us, for the people of Kali Yuga. If you have to do something for the people of Kali Yuga, should he not be born in Kali Yuga? But no, even Krishna's avatara, Bhagavan as Krishna, his avatara was for the people of Kali Yuga. And he did it because he thought, let me give my charitra so that people in Kali Yuga can just listen to that and benefit from it. Because he knew the temperament of people in Kali Yuga, and we are not going to be, accepting of avatars, etc. in this Yuga anymore. So Bhagavan finished all his avatars before Kali Yuga. We do have Kalki avatara later, right? But it's going, as per us, which is going to be a very fierce avatara. That is going to come on a horse and with a sword. We can't even imagine avatara like that now because we don't see horses or swords anymore. But we can't always understand what our scriptures say, and we can't predict how the future will be. Right? Because if we look at it, when we read our own history, the ancient Indian history, and we look at our scriptures, it talks of such great things in the past. In Valmiki's Ramayana, in Rama's period, he's talking about Pushpaka Vimana, which is like a flight, right? Like is to even imagine, say for the sake of modern argument, we say it's only an imagination. To even imagine something like that is great, is it not? But it was not mere imagination. We have scriptures which details about how to design flights. And there were so many rishis who were experts in surgery. We have proof for all that. But now, when you think of it, when you look at the current state of, Bharat Bhumi and people here, that is the reason why the modern scientists or people with modern thought question us when we say, oh, we have everything in our scriptures. We knew everything. They say, then why are you not putting it to use? If your Vedas have everything, how is it that you are not scientifically so developed, etc.? See, we don't have an answer for that. But my point here is, we have had a past which was much richer than our present. Right? India was very rich. It was called, in Hindi, it was called Sone ki Chidiya. It was called the golden bird. That is how rich our country was. Economically, spiritually, in terms of education, in terms of everything, we have been very rich. But we lost it somehow, and today, we are at the mercy of others. So, my point is, when Bhagavatam talks about a future where an avatara will happen on a horse with a sword, we have to have an open mind. We have no clue how this world is going to change far in the future. We have no clue. Because 20 years ago, or maybe I'm getting too old, 25, 30 years ago, if someone had told me that we could speak over phone or, have a video conference, I still remember when I was still in my school, we had some TV series in Tamil where the storyteller, the author at the time had this imagination of video calling, right? And I was like, wow, like to even imagine something like that in 80s was like, it is total fiction. You can't even believe it. But then today I'm talking to you. You're able to see me. So down the line, it happened while I was still alive. From fiction, it became a fact. While I was looking on. I never thought I would be holding a phone in my hand and carrying it around like it's my another arm. Right? That's happening today. So things can happen, things can change. Nothing might remain a fiction. We never know. So we have all that knowledge, right? So, but in this right now, we don't have that kind of faith in our own scriptures. So kind of Bhagavan knew that this is how people will be. And so he finished off all his avatars before Kali Yuga. So it is said in Bhagavatam itself, Prahlada says in his Stuti, Channa Kalau Yadabhavaha Triyugota Sattvam, which means, Krishna, you come only in 3 yugas. In the 4th yuga, Kali Yuga, you hide yourself. You don't come out as openly as you did in the other yugas. So Vyasacharya also, his avatar also happened only at the end of Dwapara Yuga, just before Kali Yuga. And his ashrama was located on the banks of river Saraswati. Today we don't even see the river Saraswati. It is said that it has gone underground. We can't even see the river Saraswati, but it was flowing once. And our Vyasacharya's ashrama was located on the banks of this Saraswati river. See, Vyasacharya is Bhagavan himself. He is Vishnu's Rupa. And he was a great rishi. And, like we call scientists, we have given a name for these rishis. Rishis can be called as spiritual scientists. Because what does a scientist do? When do we accept someone as a scientist? What is the mark of a scientist? One, they should be questioning everything. They should be inquisitive about things. And not just that, what is scientific approach? You observe something over a period of time, you experiment it, you observe it, and then you collect the facts, and that is how you present your theories and facts, is it not? So, doing the research by observing under conditions, experimenting it, and then viewing the results in controlled conditions, then coming out with the theory or bringing out the facts. That is a scientific approach. Rishis did this in the spiritual world. See, we have absolute confidence in all the scientific findings because we have been trained to think like that, which is good. It is absolutely good, right? We don't question anything that Edison says or Newton says or Kepler says or, all these Schrodinger's equations. We learn so much in science and we accept everything because we are confident that they know what they're talking about. They have worked on this for a long time. They have figured out. But in spite of all that, we have seen that theories have changed over time. Something that one scientist said and believed to be true was worked on further, and something else was found which was greater or deeper than what the other scientists found. So there's always a room for improvement, right? Still, we don't blame the scientists who first gave an initial theory. Though we have different theories now, the initial theory is something we still learn and we say that, this is what we built this and this was overturned by the scientist. We don't scold the scientist because his experimenting, his theory was maybe proved wrong later, right? But we are not so forgiving in the case of, or accepting in the case of spiritual world. But rishis, why in our Sanatana Dharma, we take the word of rishis as a fact. We don't question it. It is not mere faith. It is just the same as we do with the scientists. Because in the spiritual world, with regard to our mind and, the deeper truths about our existence, we have had rishis who have been very, when we compare the IQ today, we compare it with Einstein or Newton, right? That's what we do. Because we believe that they were so intelligent that they use their brain to the highest capacity. So we try to match with them like that. Similarly, the rishis, they were extremely intelligent when it came to the spiritual science, the matters of mind, the matters of existence, right? So there are two approaches to this world. You can scientifically approach figuring out things externally in the universe, or you can try and figure out things internally, right? There are two ways to do it. Externally, again, it's infinite. Internally, again, it's infinite. There are two different approaches, but looking for the facts of existence or the science of existence within his spiritual life. And then the rishis who were experts in that, they figured ways, they struggled through things and they knew the right things that would work. They knew the things that would not work. And that is how they gave us the scriptures. the guidelines they have given us, right from simple day-to-day schedules that they have given us, the routines that they expect us to do, the cleanliness they expect us to maintain. Everything has a scientific approach. We may not have it all documented so well because just like, if you ask a common man, he may not understand anything of what Einstein said or Newton said, but he would still believe that Newton and Einstein are great scientists. He may not understand or like physics or chemistry at all, but they would believe that the scientists are great. Similarly, there was a point, I guess, when we understood that these rishis are giving us the way for our own betterment. So we just, if we have to do what the scientists did again, like, in English we say we don't have to reinvent the wheel. Someone invented the wheel, you start using it. Similarly, these rishis, these spiritual scientists, they figured the path for us that will lead us to our own betterment. And they kind of inculcated the whole thing in our life as a way of life. That is why we don't have a specific religious name. Like, though we call ourselves as Hindus, if you look at all the scriptures, have you read Bhagavatam? You read Bhagavatam regularly, every week like this, every 15 days like this. We have Ramayana, we have Mahabharata, we have Vedas, we have Upanishads. Have you ever looked at any of those books? Right? You'll never find the word Hindu in any of those books. There is not a word Hindu. Hindu is not a word in Sanskrit at all. There is no word called Hindu in Sanskrit. Why do we have the name? Because someone gave us that name. Because our civilization was Indus Valley civilization, they called us Hindus, and gradually it became Hindus. That's why in Tamil it is India. In Tamil we say India, right? It is not India, but Ha and E and her, he and E, they're very close, so they're interchangeable. So we are not called, it's not our name. Our religion never had a name because it was not supposed to be a religion like we talk of religion these days. It was the way of life, but we should not simply say that Hinduism is only a way of life. It is much more than that. But it is also a way of life. It also gives us the day, it guides us in everything, in our education, in our day, right from the time we wake up till the moment we sleep. It tells us the right things to do so that we can actually better our life. Right? So these were great rishis who are scientists, really. They figured out things that we don't understand. And if we practice what they have asked us to do, we'll find tangible differences in our life. I'm sure we already are. Because we're reading Bhagavatam, we're chanting Nama, we do find a difference in our behavior, in our way of thinking, in the way we approach our life. There is a difference between what we do and others do, is it not? Because this trains us like that. So, Veda Vyasa Maharishi was also such a great rishi. And one day, he sat on the banks of river Saraswati, his ashrama, and he closed his eyes. He went into deep dhyana. Just like scientists open their eyes and look at the world and try to figure out what's there, these great spiritual scientists close their eyes, shut down all their indriyas. The difference between the external science and internal science. In external science, you see, you listen, you touch, you feel, right? You use all your senses to get the input from everything and use it to discover things and understand things. In the spiritual side of science, what we do is we shut down all our indriyas. We focus the entire energy because when you keep there's a small pot, right? And there's a light lamp within it. The light is confined to that. The moment you have some holes, the light gets dispersed everywhere. Is it not? The intensity is reduced. Similarly, through our sense organs, our energy is spent off. So when we have to use the energy to do some internal study, what they do, they shut down all the indriyas, they shut off all the inputs to all the outer sense organs, and they focus their entire energy and look within to figure out the deeper truths. So one day, our Vyasa Maharishi also sat like that. While he was contemplating, when he was doing the dhyana, he had this vision of future. He could foresee the future. He had that kind of power. And guess what? He saw the people of Kali Yuga. And just now I told you how people of Kali Yuga will be. He saw that where we have absolute faith in science, but we question everything that is spiritual, right? And he saw not just that. He just didn't see that we were spiritually weak alone. He saw that we were physically weak. He saw that we were emotionally weak. He saw that we were intellectually weak. We were weak in every aspect. Physically weak? We have so much of medical advancement in Kali Yuga. Like, how can we be physically weak? But imagine in Ramayana, it says, I'm just giving one example. Do you know when Ramchandra Prabhu was born to our Dasharatha Maharaja? When Dasharatha Maharaja was 60,000 years old. Can you even imagine a lifespan like that? Like if people hit 100, we are like this. We'll be like, what? He's 100 years old. We'll be shocked. And our Dasharatha Maharaja was coolly living for 60,000 years without a child, and he decided he'll have a child after that. Ramachandra Prabhu lived for 11,100 years. That's how it was. But as the yugas progress, the lifespan comes down. And in Kali Yuga, our lifespan is very poor. No one has any strength. And worse, people don't have any mental strength or emotional strength. Right? We see how people can't handle failures. People can't accept disappointments. Why? Because they are not mentally strong. Is it not? He saw, Vyasa Maharshi saw everything. He saw that spiritually we'll be big zero. He saw we won't understand anything. And then, only then, he suddenly realized that all the Vedas that were there already, Vedas came at the time of creation. Brahmaji, Vedas were revealed to Brahmaji, and it was with the help of the Vedas that Brahmaji created this universe. So it is the Shabda or the Vedas that came first. And that's how old our scriptures are. So he thought that these Vedas, in their current form, like in the form that when Vyasa Maharshi was there, he felt it would be of no use to these people because neither will the people of Kali Yuga have the intelligence, nor the patience, nor the capability to understand or maintain these Vedas. So he thought, let me make it easy. And he was the one who divided the Vedas into 4. He collected similar mantras, he categorized them and he gave them as 4 Vedas that we have today as Yajur Veda, Rig Veda, Sama Veda and Atharva Veda. He was the one who gave it. He had disciples. He was a great Rishi. He had disciples. So what he did, he gave one part of the Vedas to each of his disciples and he said, create a parampara of disciples, right, who can maintain and sustain these Vedas. So at least something of it is in Kali Yuga. We have lost a lot of it because of all the invasions, etc. We have lost a lot of it. But still, we are able to maintain at least what we have today because of this tradition where it is passed on from one guru to his disciple, from him to the other disciple through the word of mouth. Shruti. It is learnt by listening. Vedas are called Shruti. Why? Another name for Veda is Shruti because it is learnt by listening. These days we have CDs. These days we have books for Vedas and all. But in the olden days, the only way to learn Vedas was from Adhyayana and Adhyapanam. Or the teacher would chant it. The disciple has to listen and repeat. That is the best way to preserve sound. Anything that's in the form of sound, that's the best way to preserve. Because the moment you write it, there's always a possibility of an error. Right? One spelling mistake can change the whole meaning of Vedas. So we need to be very careful. The pronunciations matter. See, today, Sanskrit slokas written in English. Right? Most of us read Bhagavatam in English. It's a struggle sometimes. Why? Because the phonetics is not the same. Right? All the Indian languages are completely based on sounds. And English is a language that is absolutely not based on sounds. It is not based on sound at all. Right? Because A, B is only a part of the sound that Indian languages have. Right? We have babba, bibi, boo, bebe, bo, bow, bum. Right? We have all that. And in English, we have just B. It is not the same. Our Indian languages, if you know to write in Indian language, it's very easy to read it. Because there's only one way in which we can pronounce a letter. There's no other way. Wherever it comes, there's an exact way you have to. If you write a, everywhere it is only a. It cannot be anything else. If you write va, it has to be va. It cannot be pronounced as va, vi. If it is vi, it is vi. We have vi. It is so beautiful, right? So the point is, Shrutis were learned by listening, because once you write, a bit of a spelling mistake could change the whole thing, and that could be a disaster. So Vedavyasa Maharishi codified these Vedas. He gave it to his disciples, but he still felt it is not enough, because people won't have the time to study the Vedas and understand them. Even today, we have people who study Vedas, but they don't know the meaning of it because they don't have the time to learn all that. You know, they just do a rote. They just by heart the whole Veda. That's the only thing they do. So Vyasa Maharishi thought, let me get the concepts of the Vedas, all the things that are told in the Vedas, and give them in the form of scriptures that people can read, which will reach them easily. So he wrote this magnum opus called Mahabharata. Mahabharata, it gives us all the dharmas. It has everything in it. It is said that whatever is there in Mahabharata is what you'll find in any other book. If you find something very unique in some other book, be assured it will be in Mahabharata, certainly. Which means there is nothing in the world that is there which is not in Mahabharata. That is how vast Mahabharata is. He also compiled all the other Puranas, did everything. In spite of doing all this, Vyasa Maharishi still felt restless. He felt he has not done enough for the people of Kali Yuga. So they have not given them what's really useful. What should I be doing? When he had that question, it was then that Narada Maharishi exactly came to his ashrama, playing the veena, beautifully and chanting Harinama. And Vyasa Maharishi ran towards Narada Maharishi, invited him, gave him a seat to sit, and he is going to ask this question to Narada Maharishi about why he is still feeling restless. And Narada Maharishi is going to give a very beautiful Upadesha to our Vyasa Maharishi, which is going to be the seed for the birth of Bhagavatam. So with this, we'll conclude today's session. I think we have taken Kayena vacha manasendriyaiva buddhyatmana va prakrite svabhavat karomi yatyat sakalam parasmai Sriman Narayanaeti smarpayami. Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare Hare. Gopika Jeevana Smaranam Govinda Govinda Sadgurunath Maharaj Ki Jai. Radhe Radhe.